Okay, well, welcome everybody to Monday Live. We're having just a bit of a technical challenge with Masami's Zoom connection, but we're going to go ahead and get started anyway. So I wanted to welcome you on this first call of April 4th, and it's hard to believe every time it seems like we've reached a new month already. I think you've probably all heard Masami saying how there's a Japanese saying basically that the summary of it is that the first 3 months of the year fly by so fast that it's hard to even catch them. And it feels like that's where we are. So what we're here to talk about today, and we'll have a few other comments to bring in, but one of the things that we really wanted to focus on today is this amazing hormone neurotransmitter called melatonin. And so I'm just curious if anyone wants to put this in the chat. And Barbara is telling me that my connection's also not that great, although I don't see any indicators. Is everybody seeing my connection clearly? Okay, I see some thumbs up, good. Okay, so we'll hope that we're good to go. But what I wanted to ask you, let's just do a little interactive discussion here. How many of you know what melatonin is said to be good for, or what does it do in the body? What do you know about it? Let's hear some answers in the chat. Okay, we've got sleep. That's the big one coming through. Okay, is a sleep aid. Yep, more sleep. Yeah, so these are all sleep related. Great for your brain. Okay, yep, these are good. Sleep, reset. Okay, these are all great and accurate. Cancer prevention. Somebody's been doing their homework. Okay, adds to your hormones. Someone else has been doing their homework. All right, we've got a lot to talk about today. Runs mitochondria. Okay, Claudette, I think you're reading my notes for today. Runs mitochondria. All right, well, this is good. We've got an informed crowd on the call today. And we just wanted to talk a little bit about this very important molecule in our bodies because it's something that absolutely is connected to all of those things that were just mentioned, and even more besides that. And so just to get off to a start here, one of the things that we're finding is, I'm just going to put this in the context of any hormones, any kind of chemical that our body produces for normal function typically will start to taper off and decline somewhere around 40 years old. And this is true for a lot of things. Most hormones, so melatonin included, but also things we've talked about in other calls like stomach acid, for example. So that's another one that declines with age. But then another thing that happens is stress. And that's something that I think all of us can relate to, is the impacts of stress. And just like with our digestive function, it's true for our hormone functions as well. So melatonin's not immune from that. And as our stress levels rise, we find ourselves in a situation where we either are producing less melatonin because it's impairing our ability to make it, or the stress, especially the stress hormone cortisol, will actually block the function of what melatonin can do. So all of those great things that were mentioned in the chat, just as we were getting started here, those really critical functions will stop being as available to our bodies. They'll operate at a lower level. So is sleep a key part of it? Absolutely yes. Is reset? Yes. The connection to the mitochondria? Yes. And for those of you, let's just clear up a couple of terms here. The mitochondria, if you're not totally aware of what that term means, mitochondria are like the energy generators inside of every single cell of our bodies. So if you imagine the power center of the cell, it really depends on melatonin and its availability in order to function. So if we have low melatonin throughout our system, probably we're going to have fewer mitochondria, smaller mitochondria, and less powerful mitochondria, which means we have low energy. And if we have low energy, every single system of our body is going to be impacted. Our mental health is going to be impacted. Our memory is going to be impacted, and including our sleep. Okay, because even during our sleep, we still need approximately 70% of our daytime activity energy just to make it through the night, to take care of all the cleanup and the healing and the repair work. So these are all really critical functions that are happening all the time and are impacted by stress and the presence or the lack of abundance of melatonin. So let me just go over some key things that we know about melatonin. So get your pencils ready and your pens ready if you're taking notes here. All right, I think that was Erlene's pen I just saw flash there. Okay.
Chris, I just wanted to let you know I'm back.
Excellent. We're just getting started. I just did an introduction for us about melatonin. We got some feedback from the group here about what they knew about it. And so we're just getting started talking about what the research is showing that melatonin helps to protect against. So top of your list, you want to note that it helps to prevent viral and bacterial infections. And this is a very important thing at this time for obvious reasons. And we'll talk a little bit more about the connection with COVID as we go. But Masami, are you ready if you want to jump in? We're just getting to our list of things that melatonin helps to protect against. So viral and bacterial infections, and also damage from inflammation. Okay, sometimes we call that oxidative stress. But damage from inflammation is a huge job that melatonin has. And it also slows down the effects of age and brain function. So the aging that happens because of that oxidation and inflammation, it will slow down that process as well. So that affects things like I mentioned before, like mental health and memory, attention, focus, all of those kinds of things. All right, and another one that's important on the list is that it also slows down menopausal symptoms. And there's a huge tie-in that we'll get to as we go with hormones and stress, which I already kind of touched on. So Masami, anytime you want to jump in, I'll hand it over to you.
I don't know how far you got, Chris. So am I okay now?
You're good. You look good and your signal is clear. So we were just talking about in the first section of our notes there.
And you did talk about gut produces 400 times more melatonin.
No, you can pick it up from there and then jump to the next section.
Okay. So no, why don't you finish the first section that you and I talked, because I don't know how far you've talked.
Yeah. So Masami just brought up an important point, which is that the gut is actually, we often think of melatonin being produced in the pineal gland, or primarily we might call it the third eye gland. So if you go straight to the third eye and then right back into the middle of your brain, there's this little tiny sac of a gland called the pineal gland. And that's where, for the longest time, it was thought that all of the melatonin in the body was produced. But what they're finding now is that there's such a connection to serotonin, which we often think of as one of our feel-good hormones. And now we know from lots and lots of research on the gut that actually about 90% of the body's serotonin is produced in the gut. And serotonin is the precursor to melatonin. So now what they're saying is 400 times more melatonin is being produced in the gut than by the pineal gland in the brain. 400 times more. So this really puts the emphasis on our gut health and how important that is for all of these other things. Sugar regulation, hormone regulation, sleep regulation. So I'm going to just finish up with this section, and then I will pass it to Masami. But the last point I wanted to make about this list of things I started with is that melatonin has also been shown to be an aid in chemotherapy. And there's a tie-in that we'll touch on as we go with cancers, but it's actually been shown not only to assist with the effectiveness of the chemotherapy drugs, but it's also been shown to slow down the growth of cancer tumors. So it has a very powerful effect on all of those levels. And then I'm going to just say one more thing, Masami, then I'll hand it over to you. And that is that following that last point, the researchers have found that melatonin is actually, it's produced in so many other places in the body. The gut is obviously a huge one, but it's also produced in the skin, in bone marrow, in the retina of the eyes, and in white blood cells. Okay, so it's a very abundant hormone neurotransmitter in our body, and we need it in virtually every cell of our body for all kinds of functions. Okay, so I'll hand it over to Masami just to pick up there, and we'll go from there.
Well, thanks, Chris. That's the part that I was going to talk about, so I have nothing else to add.
Okay, all right. End of call. We're good.
Seriously, didn't we have a talk before getting on? I said that's the part that I was going to talk about.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's fine. We'll talk about more complicated things here. So anyway, thanks, Chris. And so I'm coming in better now, right? So that's good. So I don't know where to even start. So melatonin, did you explain that it's hormone, but it's like a neurotransmitter like thing?
Yeah, say more about that. I mentioned it, but why don't you say a little bit more about what that means?
Well, it acts like I don't know. Why don't you say more about that things? Like, why do you throw these complicated questions back to me?
Yeah, I guess I get the complicated questions.
Yeah. I was supposed to talk about the easy part, and you were supposed to take cancer and mitochondrial stuff today. Can you tell I'm a little frustrated, everyone? Chris, you've got to take on more of a complicated stuff and give me the easy stuff.
Here we go.
Today.
Ready?
Okay. Yes.
So neurotransmitters and hormones. I'm going to give you a very simple explanation of them. And yes, thanks for the reminder for deep breaths, Donna. I think deep breaths all around would be great. Can you see who's low on melatonin today? Both of us. Both of us. Okay.
Okay.
So neurotransmitters are signaling molecules that literally communicate between the neurons in your body. Okay, so they pass messages at what are called the synapses. So if you imagine kind of like the connection points where the very ends of the neurons come together, they don't quite touch each other. There's actually a little space, and the neurotransmitters will fill that space between one to the other. So they'll be produced on one side and then released into the space, and the other side will pick it up. And that's how they pass on these electrochemical signals. And so neurotransmitters are messengers. They send a signal across the neural network. And melatonin has that function as well. The body uses it as a neurotransmitter, but it also uses it as a hormone. And hormones, very simply, are molecules that tell our bodies at the cellular level to change something about what they're doing, to change their behavior. So in other words, a hormone might tell a cell to release stored sugar energy in a stress response, or it might tell the cell to produce more proteins or to produce more white blood cells due to an immune response. There are several, so those are the kinds of things that hormones do, or like thyroid hormone will tell our bodies to increase the level of energy or decrease the level of energy that we're using. Okay, so there's a little description of hormone and neurotransmitter, and melatonin does both. Okay, so I'm just I'm following through, and I mentioned that melatonin decreases as we age. So right around age 40, we're producing quite a bit less than we were even 5 years before that, or 10 years before that. And another thing about it is that melatonin is it's kind of, if you think about it as it's a very fleeting kind of molecule. It doesn't last very long in the body. And in chemistry terms, they talk about it as having a half-life. So any kind of molecule that, whether we're talking about something like uranium or other kinds of materials, we talk about their half-life, which is after a period of time, half of the material has decayed to the point where it's no longer viable. And for melatonin, it's only 1 hour. So once the body produces it, 1 hour later, half of it's gone. So we have to make sure that we're not only taking care of putting the resources that make melatonin in our body, making those available, we also have to help with stopping stress, because stress will put the brakes on it. And so I'm going to let Masami talk about the yin and yang part of melatonin and cortisol in just a second. But a lot of you got that sleep was the key thing we associate melatonin with. And one last thing I want to say is sleep itself has actually been described as the most powerful antioxidant or anti-inflammatory agent available to our bodies. Okay, sleep, just sleep. So I'm going to let Masami talk about how melatonin and cortisol have a yin-yang relationship, kind of like us. We have that same kind. I guess in this case, I don't know, am I melatonin or am I cortisol? I guess it's all relative.
I don't know, Chris.
I think for you, I'm cortisol, but
it's just after this call, I'm like, we're going to sit down, because I put down, I said, this.
I know, but Zoom,
okay,
you have to be on the call. You have to
never
be on
mind.
the call.
Thanks for carrying it on. Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
All right. Where are we? Okay. So now that I am a little less grounded, and then I'm trying to be grounded now. Okay. So melatonin helps with that too. Grounded, everyone.
Why don't we take a break? Why don't we pause and just catch our breath for a second?
Because I wanted to talk about the April moon, and I wanted to talk about what to kind of prepare for this month too. So can we just take a breath, everyone?
Good.
Let's just take 3 equal breaths. So square breaths, 4 counts to inhale and hold 4 counts, exhale 4 counts and hold for 4 counts on your own. 4, 4, 4, 4. Just like that, I feel so much better. Equalizing. So the square breathing, which I will talk about for those of you that are doing the moon journey with me, a little bit towards when we get to the first quarter moon. But the equalizing breathing is really good in terms of when you think about the melatonin and cortisol. Okay. So cortisol gets kind of this like a bad name, right? It's like stress hormones, fight or flight. We shouldn't be having cortisol so much. Well, not so quick, right? Because cortisol is an anti-inflammatory hormone. It's actually very, very important in your body. And if you don't have enough cortisol in your body that produces at the right time during the day, so your cortisol should start to kick in, starts to come up around 7 o'clock in the morning, and it'll start to dwindle around 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Then the baton goes to melatonin's hand, and the melatonin takes on the melatonin role from that point, right? So it's always kind of trying to go back and forth with each other. And so please don't vilify cortisol, because if you don't have cortisol producing, you may have actually a harder time sleeping at night, because you do actually require energy to sleep. So if you're not producing enough cortisol during the day, and if you don't have adequate amount in your body at night, you may have a hard time sleeping also. Okay. And another thing that cortisol does, and then I need to read the notes, but maybe Chris can chime in here, but cortisol really helps with your thyroid also, and the melatonin helps with the thyroid function too. But you have to have these 2 hormones matching and supporting one another. So you don't want to have too much cortisol, but you don't want to have no melatonin, or too much melatonin, not enough cortisol either. So it's this balance. And how do we create the balance? Is that number 1, you have to sleep in a dark room. So this is something that for those of you that are taking the moon journey, I am starting to really emphasize the importance of the darkness, right? And how the darkness is going to be so healing and is healing to your body, but it's healing at the mitochondrial level. Okay. So like Chris mentioned that the melatonin is not just produced in your pineal gland or pineal gland or gut produces. He said 90%, but it's actually the newest studies are coming out saying 95 to 96% of serotonin converting to melatonin is produced in your gut. So it's much more than what we thought. So if your digestion is off, if you're having bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation, overgrowth of microbes that are not very helpful to you, so you're having this equilibrium in your gut, then you're going to have a hard time sleeping. And I noticed that I go through constipation here and there, and that's always been my pattern since I was a little girl. I work on it, but if I am constipated, I do not sleep well because these microbes and toxins are recirculating through my body, and my brain is having a hard time during the night producing necessary melatonin also, but the impact is coming from my gut. So those are a couple of the things that you want to keep in mind. The yin and yang idea, you have to have the yin and you have to have the yang, you have to have both in order to have a really good life, right? And melatonin is really helpful for anti-aging, but if you don't have enough cortisol, you're not going to have energy during the day either. And that's going to deteriorate you too. So keep in mind that we're not here to say cortisol is bad, melatonin is good. Okay. It's not like that. And also like what Chris said, melatonin production goes down and down and down as you get older. Same with the hydrochloric acid, which I will be going into during the Moon Journal a little bit, but many of you know about the betaine hydrochloric acid and the importance of digestive power. That goes down and down and down as you get older too. And clinically speaking, for women, the production of the hydrochloric acid goes down around 33, 35. And then for men, the production of hydrochloric acid will start to go down around 40, 42. Okay. So to me, when you're not digesting, also melatonin is coming down too. And melatonin really helps with inflammatory bowel issues. So if you have small intestinal, large intestinal inflammatory conditions, melatonin is there to support you in that too. So if you've been hearing about words like leaky gut or gut permeability issues, melatonin is also very helpful for healing that. So between Chris and me, we do take melatonin, and we started doing that more and more in the recent years, because I'm sure many of you have heard, like 10 years ago, the melatonin, people are saying, well, you just take it when you have a jet lag, right? You take it when you can't sleep. Maybe you take maximum of 1 gram or something like that. That's not actually scientifically true anymore. More and more studies are coming out, and the therapeutic dose can go up to even 100 milligrams. A lot of the people are saying to take between 20 and 40 milligrams, but that will have to be adjusted. Please work with the person that you're working with in terms of your doctor or primary care person. But I do think it's worth looking into taking melatonin, maybe more amount than the small amount that you've been taking. Okay. So, and I think, did I say 1 milligram or 1 gram? It's not 1 gram. Okay. 1 milligram is what people used to take. And now we're recommending 20 to 40 milligrams. Some are recommending even more than that. Okay. Milligrams. And I think the one more thing that I wanted to say about the melatonin and the power of the melatonin is that it lowers the excess estrogen. What that means is that estrogen oriented cancers, if you can utilize melatonin, meaning create more darkness, meaning create sleep time that is going to bed between 10 to 11 at night, that is going to help you to produce more melatonin. That's going to also lower your chances of maybe expressing estrogen oriented cancer and other illnesses, right? Because it's been shown to, I'm going to read my notes here, but the lower excess estrogen and may prevent breast cancer. So low melatonin has also been linked to other estrogen dependent cancer. like endometriosis or endometrial cancer. Okay. And also high cortisol blocks or lowers the production of a thyroid hormone. So if you're not getting enough melatonin at night and you're getting too much cortisol at night because you're exercising at night, that's a bad thing. Okay. Or blue light exposures, too much flickering light. You're sleeping with the phone next to you. There's always some kind of night light on. Okay. Your cortisol can't shut down. Melatonin can't come on. Then you're going to have a hard time with your thyroid health as well. So thyroid isn't just this issue, right? Thyroid has a connection to your liver, gallbladder, the bile flow, and then now melatonin. So those are a couple of the things that I wanted to mention. I think it's worth maybe listing a couple more things about what creates deficiencies in melatonin. Like I said, going to bed too late, going to bed with the light on, not giving your cortisol the chance to come up around 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, and your clock is upside down. Night shifters definitely have a hard time producing melatonin, because the moment you expose yourself to light, melatonin half-life is only an hour. So it's going to shut down and it won't produce for another hour or so. And then you're going to find yourself waking up in the middle of the night and can't get back to sleep. Okay. Let's see. Anything else, Chris, that you want to add to? I mean, exercising at night is not great.
Yeah. Can I just add one thing, which is about the, well, let me touch on that one quickly. The exercising at night. So if you're somebody that has done that, you may notice that it affects your sleep, because one of the things that happens with many people when they exercise is they release cortisol. And so Masami started off by talking about sort of this yin-yang relationship between cortisol and melatonin. And so if you're exercising at night and then increasing your blood cortisol levels, it's going to suppress melatonin expression. And one of the things, we were first taught to think of melatonin as a sleep hormone, because that's what the early research showed us, was that it's something that the brain produced, and it produced it as we were shifting into the sleep mode. But what they're showing now is that relationship with sleep actually has a lot more to do with healing and repair, because of that connection that we talked about earlier in the call to the mitochondria. And melatonin is what helps the mitochondria stay charged up and healthy in producing energy, and to signal them to produce energy in an efficient way. And so that connection to sleep is that's the time our mitochondria get to really activate and grow and replicate themselves in the cells to help power the healing process. And melatonin's a key part of that. And so just to reiterate one more thing, is that with that yin-yang relationship, is that we often think of cortisol as being sort of like the hormone that activates us. It gets us to be alert and on edge and things like that. So it's good in a way that it keeps us very much paying attention to our environment and what's going on, but it can also disrupt hormone expression, especially things like sex hormones and growth hormone. And so melatonin somewhat does the opposite, where it helps to regulate the timing of the other hormones, and also to when they get released. So that's another reason why, it's like we're starting to understand we actually have a greater need for it throughout the day and the night. And so these recommendations that we're seeing from researchers now, like Masami mentioned, these higher doses, to really get the effect of that, you don't want to just take a large superdose of melatonin in one shot before you go to bed. It'd be better to actually take several small doses throughout the day, so that your body is getting what it needs throughout the day. And then by the time you sleep, you've helped to kind of prepare your natural production and energy levels so that the body can take it over during those hours of sleep. Okay, so I'll hand it back to Masami there for a minute. Oh, you're muted.
Lots of glitchy stuff today. Sorry, everyone. One of the good things about the melatonin production is like what supports it is actually deep, slow abdominal breathing. So I've been trying to do that now because it's been a little bit of a crazy times for us. And, it gets a little bit, I don't know how much of this, Chris, you want to share, but he's been through a lot of stress right now. Like it's been just incredible. His stress level was so high that his heart was, what was happening to your heart the other day?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a tendency to have arrhythmias, and so I was feeling so much of the stress hormones that I had to lie down because my heart was beating very irregularly, and I know that when that happens, that's a symptom of pretty acute stress, and so,
And we,
yeah.
we we did take some melatonin to help with that several evenings, like a little bit higher dose, just so that we can calm our hearts. But you can see we're yin and yang. Obviously, he's the yin, everyone. I'm the yang. So then, I was like, I would just lash out. Like I would be like, this is not working for me. Right. And then Chris would just like go inward and his heart is pounding. Like it was giving him pain in his own heart. That he had to lie down and it was starting to show up on his legs. So I don't know if you've ever felt that, like when the heart is pounding so hard, or you're in so much stress for like days after day, week after week. His legs, like thighs, the nervous system was reaching to that point, and he was feeling vibration in his thighs that were very uncomfortable. So, we're bringing this up because if that's happening, we're not sleeping well. And we also both know that if we don't sleep, we're not going to heal. So this is when we will reach for the melatonin much more. And, when to take melatonin, the thing is, if you're having a hard time sleeping, and, as you guys know, right, we're not doctors. So please speak to your primary care. Okay. I have to emphasize that so that you can do this in a way that is most helpful for you. Okay. But this is just kind of a suggestion, maybe possibly a recommendation for those of you that do not sleep well, is to take about like even half a milligram of melatonin starting around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that has the half-life of 1 hour, right? So another hour. So at 5 o'clock, you take out another half a milligram. And then you do it again. And then hopefully by the time you are heading towards 10 or 11 o'clock at night, you can find yourself calm enough. And then you can take maybe 1 milligram or 2 milligrams at that time. And then you can maybe sleep through the night or so. Okay. That's something that you could play around. And, Erlene asked a good question saying, are there any side effects? To be honest with you, there aren't any. There aren't any side effects with melatonin because melatonin is so like really good for you. It's like a master hormone. It's one of the most important hormones out there that like not enough people are talking about. The only thing that you may experience if you have gut permeability issues is grogginess. Okay. When you wake up in the morning, you might feel groggy, but that is, don't be too quick to point at melatonin and say it's the melatonin's fault. No, it could mean that you're having gut permeability issues. Okay. And that's causing you to have the grogginess. If that happens, just lower the dose for a little bit and see, because like I said, melatonin can actually help to heal the gut permeability. That's what's cool about it, right? It can possibly support your gut healing, but while you're healing, you might have a little grogginess too. So you just pull back in the milligrams. You just start with maybe half a milligram and maybe get to 1. Okay. But like I said, it does get lowered and lowered and lowered as you get older. So why not give some of this back? And early on, it's like, what kind of food helps with the melatonin production? Anything that is anti-inflammatory to your system. Things that are colorful in rainbow color foods. Even like, I'm not a fan of milk, but some milk has been shown to produce melatonin. So it makes sense that in I'm sure I grew up with a family that occasionally my mom will say, do you want some warm milk before you go to bed? You're having a hard time going to bed or something, right? I don't drink cow milk anymore, and I haven't touched cow milk since I was 16 years old. So I don't do that. But milk has shown, because of the protein content, can help you to produce melatonin a little bit more. Things like tart cherries can be really good. So what I've noticed, and it's really strange, Chris has noticed this too. It was about 10 days ago, wasn't it, Chris? I asked him if he was going to go to the grocery store, if he would pick up some organic tart black cherry juice for me. And I don't usually drink those. Okay. I don't drink fruit juice much, but black tart cherry juice. Okay. I just craved it. I said to Chris, I am craving it. I need it. Could you go get some? Well, guess what? Tart cherries, and you could get tart cherries, normal tart cherries. You could get black cherry juice. Those things will help you to produce melatonin also. And I actually didn't think about it till I started thinking, oh, for this Monday call, I might talk about melatonin. I'm like, oh, no wonder I've been wanting that black cherry juice. Okay. So things like that, right? But like I said, if you only rely on foods, just because we are producing less and less melatonin, you will have to be drinking black cherry juice or tart cherry juice like all day long, like, gallons of them at a time, just to try to get you to have enough melatonin. So my recommendation is that you actually do take some supplements in terms of melatonin. And like I said, there are really no known side effects. I think there's so many positive things are coming out, and some scientific studies are coming out to say that if you have elevated PSAs, that means you're low on melatonin. So those of you that are out there that, your loved ones or somebody that that have elevated PSAs, you may want to recommend, hey, do you want to look some scientific journals on melatonin connections? And you can go to pubmed.org, and Chris can maybe put it up there, but pubmed.org is where you can actually research things about melatonin connections to many different things: cancer, estrogen, excess estrogen, breast cancer, okay, and prostate cancer, okay. So those are the things that you can look into. Okay. Anything else that, Chris, you need to add there?
Yeah, I think that there is just a lot of these are some good questions that are coming in, and yeah.
Oh, thank you. Hold on. Thank you, Richard.
Richard
PSA.
Yeah, thanks. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's for prostate, measuring the prostate cancer level. So prostate specific antigen. Leave it to Richard and he will help us. So yeah.
I was just going to say, it was back to the question about the side effects. And like you said, we can't really say it's side effects so much if you take this, but you want to be careful about your dosing. And that is something, one of the most reported effects of melatonin is what we might describe as sluggishness. It's not even sleepiness. It's just sort of, you slow down a little bit, but that's that connection again, back to your body switching out of the fight or flight mode of the nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system, into that rest and relaxed and digest mode. Okay, so that's a transition that's happening. And I think what we see a lot of is that people who always have overcharged nervous systems, when you start triggering the switch with a hormone or a neurotransmitter like melatonin, it can feel a little bit like a hard switch, like you're moving right over into this other mode. And when you're in the rest and digest mode of the nervous system, you'll actually notice how tired you are because you're not charged up with stress energy anymore. You're starting to feel the depth of how much you need to recharge, how much you need to rest and take care of yourself. So melatonin is kind of like a very gentle switch that moves you over into that parasympathetic mode. So I wanted to mention that. And maybe, should we just say a couple of quick comments about the COVID connection that's coming up in the research?
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about that yet, right?
Let's just touch on that and then maybe get into some of these questions and have you go over the some of the things about the Moon Power program and some other announcements we had since we got flipped with our start today. One thing, thank you, Roxana, for putting up the PubMed.gov. That's actually a .gov. And,
yeah, I think that I said .org, huh?
But it's PubMed. You can even just look up PubMed and you will find access to the direct research papers. I'll warn you, they're very technical. So if you've never looked at this kind of research before, this is the direct research that the scientists conducting the studies are publishing. So it's not meant for the general public. Okay, so you might find that they're immediately very dry and sleep inducing. That might actually be a good way to make yourself go to sleep, is to print out some PubMed reports and start reading them before you go.
Oh my gosh, they're so boring, everyone. But now you understand what we do most of the days. It's like we're literally reading scientific journals all day long.
We're just really calm after doing that all day long. But
no, we are very much nerds here.
Yeah. So the COVID connection. There were several studies that started coming out in the last year. Part of it we started really noticing it back in 2020 before there was a vaccine that had been certified for use. And during the time before the vaccines were certified, basically researchers were going crazy trying to find things that could help with preventing COVID or at least reducing symptoms. And so what was interesting is it was sort of like a little mini renaissance for the functional nutrition world, where they were testing things like zinc and iodine and quercetin and melatonin, and starting to find all of these fantastic results about their antiviral properties and their anti-inflammatory properties. And so that was the first time in decades that anybody had seriously done work around these nutrients. And it was kind of amazing to watch them pop up in the context of COVID because nobody had answers. They were scrambling. But as clinicians, we've known this forever. I mean, it is in research going back decades, if not hundreds of years, anecdotally, clinically, that these nutrients are extremely powerful in supporting our immune response. And so research that's come out in the last year around COVID infections in particular has shown that melatonin is a very, very powerful anti-inflammatory agent. It helps to stop that thing we all heard about on the news, which is the cytokine storm, which was being said every day in the news cycle for the first 6 months of the pandemic. And that's that super inflated inflammatory response that our bodies produce when we're having a massive infection from particularly viruses. So what they showed is that melatonin basically pushes back on that. And it's something that regular use of it or therapeutic use of it can prevent both infection and symptom burden. So the severity of symptoms. And another connection, and Masami touched on this earlier, is that they showed that there was also a tie-in with glutathione, which is one of the main antioxidant compounds that the body uses, especially in the liver for detox functions. So there are all of these connections between immune function, toxicity in the body, inflammation, oxidative stress, and supporting the functions that make those operate. Melatonin being the key, because we're talking about that today. It's one of the most powerful, but glutathione would probably be right up there with it. And so they showed that melatonin helps to recharge and elevate the glutathione levels, which just increases the body's ability to resist infection and also to reduce the damage that it causes to cells from inflammation. Okay, so that's probably enough said on that component there. So do you want to switch gears or take a few more questions? I think there are a couple more questions that came in.
Yeah. So if you've taken melatonin and you haven't done well, don't give up, because like I said, you probably have more of a leaky gut issues than anything else. So like I said, melatonin may not work for you, or you feel like it has the opposite effect. And then we have to look at your adrenal health. Maybe you might be having adrenal fatigue. that we need to address first. You also want to look at your diet. You can't just be taking this and say, I'm going to sleep like a baby every night from this point forward. It doesn't quite work like that either. So, and if the melatonin is not quite working or having the opposite effect, you want to look at mitochondrial health too, because mitochondria produces melatonin as well. And that's where you get, if the melatonin, not melatonin, but the mitochondria shuts down, your life will shut down immediately also within not even a second, like split seconds. So it's really important to support the health of your mitochondria also. So, I would just start with a small dose, see if that can help. If it's not helping, then I would go to the gut health first and make sure that you're starting to work on your digestive issues, upper GI issues. Like I said, betaine hydrochloric acid is probably a necessary thing. You want to definitely go into the small intestine and work on your lining and, doing things to support the healing of the gut lining first, then maybe revisit the melatonin side as well. And I saw Astrid mentioned about the eating cherries may help to increase your melatonin naturally. So that's awesome, Astrid. I didn't see that till now, but yeah, like I said about the cherry juice, it's like something about it. I'm like, I have to have this because I was not sleeping well for about 2-3 weeks at that time. And sleeping in too late, could not go to bed early enough. And I was having especially after the time change, I was having a hard time. And just my thinking mind will not slow down. So I was drinking just like 4 ounces of really good organic cherry juice before going to bed. And that was really, really helpful for me. Okay. Other questions are coming in. Oh, the Alzheimer's question.
Yeah, I actually, can I just say something about that?
Yeah.
It's actually quite the opposite. So I'm going to paste, we're talking about PubMed. Here you go. Here's a study that is about the use of melatonin in Alzheimer's disease. And what it shows is actually that people with Alzheimer's produce a lot less melatonin, and they don't, their ability to uptake it into their brain and their body is one of the issues that's related to the disease. So melatonin is actually used as a therapeutic treatment for brain-based diseases like Alzheimer's. So
I was just gonna post the same link, so that's perfect.
and so so here's another thing is that I saw that Beatrix had a question about the side effect. This goes back to something I said earlier about the mind racing when you take melatonin. So there's this kind of paradoxical thing that can happen when we are in a stressed out mode all the time, and then we start taking measures to slow our mind and our body down. And at first, what it feels like is a big uptick in sensitivity and noticing all of the things that are impacting us. And we kind of have to go through that phase because that's part of the unwinding process. So you may have noticed that as you started taking it, that it did feel like you were buzzing or like your mind was racing. And this might be a perfect example of where it can be very powerful to take it in small doses over the course of several hours of the day. And do that for a couple of weeks so that you're basically training your body to start making that switch more gradually as you're approaching sleep. And it knows that it has the raw materials to get through the night, and it's not having to go into sort of a panic mode when that happens.
It's what I was talking about, right? Like from 4 o'clock or so, just literally take 0.5 milligram, even like 1/4 milligram, just teaching your body to start to focus on, hey, we're switching now. We're switching away from the cortisol time of the day. We're switching towards melatonin time of the day. So it's just re-educating your rhythm. We all carry, I think that April is a really important time. It's basically, I put new beginning, we started with the new moon in Aries. So this is kind of starting over kind of a month, and you're going to actually notice a lot about your own programming that have been like tattooed in you, ingrained in you. It's indoctrinated in you. So it's throughout your life. It's the programming, it's the patterns, it's all old habitual things are going to really come up this month. So what you want to do with the melatonin, or a lot of different supplements too, is to know that if it doesn't work, don't just give up on that supplement, but just know that, wow, there's a pattern that I need to unwind first. I need to peel away at these rhythms that it's no longer serving me first. And, one of the comments that came through the moon journey that we embarked on Saturday, I found it very interesting. And I thought that was a very good comment that came through, was that this person was saying, I was really trying to do a lot over the weekend. I had a lot of things to do and I was getting a lot of things done. And then she read that my comment said the new moon time is not to be doing more. And she realized that, wow, my rhythm is upside down, right? Many of our rhythms are upside down. And I think that's what you learn when you take things like melatonin, or when you do the moon journey. You go, I'm doing the things at not the right timing. Okay. I shouldn't be addressing on liver detox at this time of the month, or I should be focusing on more of this organ, right? That's what you're learning in that, right? And that's what you are learning through taking supplements and saying, wow, this thing just flipped me upside down. That means you might be flipped upside down during the day. Okay. So try not to just go into it and say, I will never take melatonin, because that happened to me several decades ago. And I thought, I'm never taking melatonin, because my brother said, hey, take some melatonin. I was flying back from Japan, and then I took some, and it made me so buzzy that I was like, I am not doing this. And I came home and I thought I will take a little bit to see if it will help me with my jet lag. It did not help me at all. And I almost freaked out taking melatonin. I remember that, like, I just recall it now. I couldn't remember it till now. But then I stopped taking melatonin for a long time, till really recently, when the science started coming out saying this is such an important neurotransmitter and a hormone, and a master hormone. So really do revisit melatonin, everyone. And Chris is going to put up a link here that you can purchase. We buy the ones from the Biotics. And if you want to buy the Biotics Research B6 melatonin combo, and if you've been having problems with dreaming and you don't remember dreams, or your dreams are mostly nightmarish, okay, or you wake up in the morning and you say, I don't remember any dreams, that's a sign, especially if you're not dreaming and you don't remember your dreams, that's a sign that your brain is deteriorating. Okay. That is a sign that your brain is going into a form of dementia. Okay. It may not be fully diagnosed as a dementia, but your brain is deteriorating. So you want to make sure to support your brain health. And B6 is very important for that. That's why we like the B6 and melatonin combo. And if you want to order it through fullscript.com/welcome/breathe inc. And we posted that link here, and we'll post it on the YouTube as well. If you go there, set up your account there, you'll get 10% off ordering this B6 melatonin combo that we take. And I say start with just breaking it in half, and start with a half of that. Just see how that goes. And then a week later, start with the one, see how that goes. Take your time with this. Don't rush this.
I was going to say the same thing, is that for somebody who really gets their nervous system activated when you take melatonin, it's probably because of an extreme deficiency. So if you start with that understanding, you can take one of these Biotics Research B6 melatonins. The tablet is scored. So there's a little line down the middle, so you can cut it very easily. And you can actually cut it again into quarters. And then that way you're taking, instead of taking, so it's 3 milligrams for the dose of 1 tablet. And so if you split that into 4 parts and you spread it out through the day, and then you maybe take it again at night, that's a good way to introduce it to your body so that it doesn't have such a strong effect. And let me jump to a couple of other questions. For those of you, let me just say with the full script setup, if you do click that link, this is for our practitioner account. And so thank you, Richard, for doing the math for us. Thank you. I was struggling there. You can see my brain is not crunching numbers very well today.
Apologize. Neither of us are really.
We have been in high melatonin need for the last probably month. So I was just going to say, if you go there, it's just going to ask you to sign up with. You'll start with an email, and then you can also put in your name, basically your name and your phone number. And the platform is a really responsive platform. You can actually get text messages for your orders and reminders and sales and things like that. So, but you get 10% off of anything, not just the melatonin. Caroline asked, is it too late to join the Moon? It's actually the Moon Power. It's a reclaim your Moon Power. Is it too late to join? Absolutely not. And I'll put that link up. And
I put the link up, I think, but you can put the link up as well.
Okay, I'll grab.
And the link was in, Caroline, that was in the email also. So if you go back to the email where you found the Zoom link for today's call, there's the link there too. Yeah, come join us. Come join us. We just started our first Monday 20-minute call was today. So join us. I'm seriously like blown away by all of you, like beautiful people are joining and have joined the Moon journey. Have you felt that, everyone? I mean, it's amazing. Amazing people are showing up to this Moon journey. And we're taking this little by little by little bit. And everyone just tell me to go slowly, because I can just go blah, and then it's too much information. Okay. So I'm slowly trickling the information out there for you guys. All right. So I think any other questions, everyone?
There's a question about eye masks. Actually, a few people asked that throughout this. You touched on it, but just to reiterate, covering your eyes can really substitute for darkness, but your skin is very photosensitive also. Okay, so actual darkness is the best, but using an eye mask of some kind will really help with simulating the darkness.
Yes.
And, for those of you that were in the Moon Power Sunday call, we actually shared a poem called Eye Mask, and that kind of gets at that darkness that we need for the healing. So
yeah. Okay. And what's Steve asking? I didn't understand Steve's question. Or check the link to full script. It required email and the password. You have to plug in your own email and create your own password, and then you get 10% free shipping for the supplements for Canada and US. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then Caroline.
Free shipping on orders over $50.
Over $50. Okay. So Caroline, menopause, hot flashes, any help? Oh my gosh, that's a giant topic. We can talk about it for the next 30 days. But remember, we just mentioned that the melatonin actually helps with the menopausal symptoms, including hot flashes. So I'm not saying melatonin is the way to go. No, it's not, because hot flashes, I always directly connect to the liver and gallbladder. So, and in adrenals too. But so it's not a simple answer, right? Take this and you'll be fine kind of an answer. Okay. That's why we hesitate to do a lot of these kind of calls that just say, take melatonin and you'll be happy. Like, it doesn't work like that, but know that melatonin is an amazing hormone neurotransmitter that I think it's worth it for you to look at it again. Okay. If you've heard about it 20 years ago, like I did, and did not feel good taking them, maybe revisit that, because now that my gut is operating great, I am not having any gut permeability issues. I'm not having any SIBO symptoms that are coming up. Melatonin works lovely and gorgeously for my body now. Okay. All right. Anything else? We should wrap up.
Yeah, we should wrap up. There are a couple of questions about magnesium. So Mary Jo's question about using magnesium glycerophosphate complex for sleep. MGzyme is a good one too. The glycerophosphate, probably your body will absorb it a little bit faster, and you'll probably get a little bit more of the magnesium. The MGzyme is a very good combination. It uses 3 forms of magnesium. So
Yeah, glycerophosphate. I can never say that word. Anyway,
Phosphate.
glycerophosphate. Okay, magnesium. That is more used for blood sugar regulation as well during the night. And so people that have like, dip in blood sugar in the middle of the night that wakes you up, or diabetic, it's really great for that. If you're having any gallstone issues, gallbladder issues, that's a great form of magnesium as well. Okay.
And one last question from Susanna about getting B6 melatonin in the UK. So Susanna, I happen to know that you are in the Moon Power program, so you can actually go to the supplements section of the course and click on the link for Nutrilink. And that will take you there. And yes, you can get that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think that's what we have. Is that good, everyone? Any other questions? No, doesn't look like it. Going once, going twice. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. But please send Chris some love. Can you guys, like the ones that are staying on, could you please send Chris some love? This has been a really, he could use it. Chris, just receive,
Mm-hmm.
I have to step in because he doesn't share much of himself, obviously, right? I'm like always blabbing about what's going on with me, but Chris has been going through a really tough times. And he's in the changing time right now. He puts on a good show, but is it okay if I tell them that you're in the changing time?
That's fine. I've already mentioned.
Oh, you already did. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I haven't given, I can just say it for myself. I'm leaving it's been a very stressful and emotionally depleting role that I've played for the last few years. And so I'm coming right to the end of it. This is my last week. Friday is actually that's it. That's the final day. But in the lead up to it, the amount of work that it's taken just to depart on terms that I feel good about has completely exhausted me. And to the point where last week I found myself having those heart palpitations and the arrhythmia kind of action. And I had to lie down. And this is something all of you can take away from this too, is that act of lying down. It's called horizontal rest. I mean, I recommend this to people all the time. So does Masami. Just lying down on my back, covering my eyes. And I honestly just had a couple of sobs come up. And it didn't have really a lot of content to it. It was a way of the body resetting from that stress cycle. And so I had to actually just sit there and have, a little bit of tears came up, a couple of sob kind of feelings came up, and then very quickly it relaxed. And I felt like a different person when I stood up about 20 minutes later. And so it's getting better now. The big crash of the wave hit last week. So it's getting better, but I'm definitely looking forward to recovering.
Thank you, everyone. Chris, did you feel that?
I did. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And we'll continue with the once a month Monday calls. And for those of you that are in the journey of the moon, I will see you, and Chris and I will see you tomorrow. So see you then. Bye, everyone.